Well, hello and welcome back. Sorry it's been a few days. Got a few things to do. I had a dentist trip to sort out what's doing with these teeth. As you can see, the figure's changed a little bit from the last video. Basically what's happened is I added, as I've shown you on the arm, the red wash from Vallejo. After that was dry, I went over some of the areas with a blue wash, also a Vallejo wash, as you can see. And then also on top of that, when that was dry, I went over it with a thin down Reichland shade, flesh shade from a Citadel, which was thinned, in fact they was all thinned using the mixing medium, approximately 50-50 mixers. So yeah, that's basically what we ended up with. We're going to apply the Reichland flesh shade to the arm because we didn't do that with that, because I left that for this video. So that's what we're going to do now. So basically that's just going to be a 50-50-ish mix, can't be exact. But we can be close-ish. So we're just going to put some of this in here because we don't need a lot really. Okay, so we've got 3 dollops on this rather large brush, washing brush. I'm going to add 1, 2 drops of the quick shade mixing medium, which is working pretty well actually. I've been quite impressed with it so far, with the use I've used with it. So we'll just mix those together, see it doesn't lie on it. Now I'm going to apply that over this flesh area, all over it, nothing particularly tidy about it at the moment. As you can see, I've done some of the blue on the back as well, but not the red, just the blue on the back. Basically I applied the wash onto this back, dried off the excess wash off the brush, went over it again, take any really thick build up off. So it didn't totally discolour the flesh colour we had, but it has sort of toned it down, a bluish colour. Again, we're going to dry this brush off a little bit and just get it off some of the raised areas a bit more. Not all of them, just some. No, it's not the best lighting system I've got in operation here, I admit that. I did do the hoofs as well. Basically it was just a mix of browns down to buff, and then I went over it with a Reichland flesh. Reichland, yeah, flesh shade from Citadel. And again, especially I've painted the teeth in a buff colour. I put some Reichland flesh over the horn that we'd already washed previously. You could put the Reichland flesh on the hands if you wished. I'm not sure I'm going to do that. But yeah, that's what we've got there. You can see the colour. This is just a blue, so it was the blue wash. Dry off your brush, get it off some of the raised areas. You don't have to get every bit off. Mainly want it in these dark areas with a little hint of it on the higher raised. And then I went over that with the Reichland wash, and again some of it off, excess off. And basically that's all I did. And that's how we ended up at this. Obviously the reason this is more red is because I thinned the blue down a bit more on here, because I wanted to keep more red on this. So that's what we did on there. Okay, as you can see his horn is broken. I'm going to put in some black red, which is a Vallejo colour. I'm not going to be too fussed about this. I'm not even going to thin it down. I just want a little daub like that. I'll need a brush a bit smaller probably for this job. That would do. This is just a nylon cheap brush. I bought some cheap brushes just to see what they were, if they're any good or not. You know, the brushes I buy normally are about £7 odd each, but you know, I thought I'd try these. There's a lot of jobs that you can do with these brushes without ruining your more dear brushes. And when you're doing a lot of rough areas with your good brushes, it does tend to wear them out a lot quicker. Anyway, we're just going to put this in. This is just so we've got some kind of dark base colour. Oh, we've got most of it in there. We're fine. Normally I would add this colour to these claw hands as well. If you want to make these bloody, I would suggest you put some of this on now. We might do that actually. We're definitely going to do this to the mouth as well. So we're going to go over some of the teeth with this. We're going to leave a bit of the teeth showing, so we're not being too neat. We're just trying to get some of the teeth in this dark red colour. You'll see the reason for this later. The other reason why I'm a bit delayed in painting is I do have a couple of, you know, commission works I have to get all the details sorted on. Some Swedish from the Great Northern War for a customer who's doing an army of those for his wargaming, because they have like wargaming exhibitions and he wants those. So I've got about 30 or 40 units of those to do this before October roughly. And I've also got some Adaptus Custodes box sets to do for another customer. So obviously they take precedence over this because this doesn't pay and they do. But anyway, that's where we are at the moment. Done the red on there. If we're going to put any blood on the claws, I might put some red on here as well on the nails. But for now we'll come back to that later and see whether we're going to do that. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Just depends on the final effect. You can, or we may, come back in here with some flash wash just to pick some of these really raised eye bits out on the chest, and maybe at the top of the face, but I don't know yet. Just so they're a bit more, you know, you can see a bit more detail. Although, to be honest, I'm quite happy as that is at the moment. I mean, at the end of the day, this figure is probably going to end up on eBay. And I don't know if you've ever sold on eBay, but they don't like to pay much, so it's best not to go too mad. We're spending 5 years painting it to get nothing back. It's just not a profitable exercise. The next thing we're going to do on this particular model is we're going to get a buff colour. I'm not going to paint all of these right now, I'm just going to demonstrate one or two. And this is a buff colour. You'll notice I'm not thinning this down. As long as you're not going to splash it on all over willy-nilly, you'll be fine. And we're just going to go over all of these horns. You may have to apply 2 coats of this, because it's not the best, you don't get the best coverage of this buff. No. It's just, if you don't thin your paint down for stuff like this, and I don't always, just make sure that you brush it, you know, when you've put your little blob on, or whatever it is you start, where's the area you start, make sure you spread that around very well, to get rid of as much of that paint over the area as possible. And that will thin it out for you naturally. You won't get all this, where you see these pictures of it's all build up. That's just because someone just come on, brushed it on dead thick, and not brushed it out. That's all that is. That's what causes that. So just brush it out, and it will look no different. It will give you better coverage. Because if I thin this out, I'll probably have to paint this 2, maybe 3 times to get the same effect I'm going to get, because I do brush it out. Yeah, that's all it is. You've just got to make sure you brush this out. I mean, don't spend 2 hours doing it, obviously, because the paint will be drying, and you can rough it up if you're still trying to brush it while it's basically drying. So, you know, you've got some time. It don't dry in 2 seconds. And it's not going to take you 5 minutes to paint this bit. Now, if you was painting a really large area, I would suggest you thin it down, because it might take you a bit longer to do. But on small bits, you don't have to thin your paint down every 5 seconds. You just don't. The trouble with a lot of painters that I've seen is, although some of them are very good, they do try to make it too complicated. You know, basically it's not complicated. They just make it look complicated, and there's nothing complicated to it, and they scare a lot of people. You know, don't get your paint too thick. And if you put this figure on a table, or if I put this figure on a table when it's finished, without the aid of a magnifying glass or super zoom lens, nobody's going to know whether I thinned that paint down and put 5 layers on or not. Nobody. They're just not. Nobody will know. The only time you'll know is if I go like this, and then I go like that, and I go like this, and I leave it like that. Yeah, fair enough. It's going to be lead clumpy and lumpy, but don't do that. Just brush it out. If you've got too much paint on this brush, get rid of some of the paint, because you only need to be working with what you've put on. You know, just get rid of some of your excess paint and brush out what you've applied, and you'll be fine. No problems whatsoever. Again, this doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, because this is going through his flesh. But it's quite possible some of his flesh, and don't forget we're going to wash these down as well. Probably with the Reichland flesh, which we've already washed over here. So it will blend it down anyway. You know, if you just get a big piece of paint and go like this, yeah, you'll probably end up with, that'll probably dry or texture. But all you need to do is get rid of a bit of paint off your brush, and then you can just use this and spread this around, and you'll get a better coat. I mean, don't use the tiniest brush you've got to do it. That's why I'm using this larger brush. I could get away with a smaller brush, but I'm using this larger brush for this. Yeah, just keep doing this. Spread your paint. There's enough paint on there with this brush that I put on to do the one next to it. So I'm doing the one next to it. You know, I don't have to apply more paint at the moment. Plus you can wet your brush if you wish as well. Just keep wetting your brush every so often so your brush don't dry out, which will prevent a lot of your problems. I don't tend to, I tend to do it ever so often, but just ever so often, you know, rinse this off so you don't get a build-up of dry paint, and then carry on where you left off. Because as I said, this doesn't need to be perfectly neat because it's going through the skin. In some places on this model, to be honest with you, it's hard to tell which is the flesh and which is the, you know, the growth tusk going through the body. But yeah, we just repeat and rinse all the way around. We'll do this on all of them, every single piece that's on this model, and then we'll take it from there. You know, we'll use a base of brown, various shades of brown from the base, from say this point, work out a bit, then another colour work out a bit, and then we'll wear this buff at the end, at the tip, and then we'll wash it all down, which will blend it all together, so you don't have to do wet blending. so don't worry about wet and brown there. There's no need for that. It's another thing that's overcomplicated. It's something used by people who do, you know, showroom stuff. Or, you know, you're trying to win the best award going. If your miniature's going to come under extreme scrutinization, then yeah, you may well need to wet blend it. But I think you're getting the basic idea of what we're doing here anyway, so not how bored you want to get. As I say, it's just a matter of really brushing it out. You know, if your brush is getting dry or your finger's getting dry, just put in some water, get rid of that, and carry on. And you're not getting paint drying on your brush, and your brush has got water in it if you're using a larger brush. Even though I've just dried it a bit, I only wiped it quickly. It's got sufficient water to thin this amount of paint I'm putting on here down. Definitely. I mean, you'll get people who use wet pallets, which is basically some kind of greaseproof paper with wet tissue underneath to soak water. You put your paint on, your paint stays wet. That's great if you're mixing colours or you're blending colours and you want them to stay wet longer. You can put a retarder in, which will stop your paint drying out as well. But that's basically all the paint. If I've done now, if I finish now, that's what I'd waste, which is, let's face it, not the end of the world, is it? I mean, yeah. So yeah, you know, it's up to you. It's up to you. Yeah. If you're not bothered about paint, I mean, what's a pot of paint? £2 something, I think it is. I let you do that a lot of times to use a pot of paint on. It's going to last me a while. But yeah, basically we're just doing all these little bones. There's a few of them spread around. Some are smaller than others. Hidden, like this one. All the way around the figure. Don't worry if you just catch a bit of the flash on this type of creature, because by the time you put the wash on, it will tone it down. It will, you know, obviously don't paint miles onto the other colours. I'm not saying go crazy. It's the same with the bits that go through the metal work. Sorry, I'm holding my breath. I have that bit of doing that. As you can see, the bits that go through the metal work are just the same. They just get painted exactly the same way. I realise you can't see this bit very well. I can't really get this bit in a position. The camera's going to see it, and I can paint it comfortably. So yeah, that's all we're doing. We're just painting around them, you know. And we'll repeat that on all these growths, and we'll come back when we've done that. Thank you.